what is going on inside the Conservative Party's backbenchers' minds that anybody thinks it's a great idea to start talking about changing your leader at this point in the cycle. It is literally just deranged.
But they've still got 10 months. A new YouGov poll today suggests that Labour have maintained a lead of 27 points over the Conservatives. Meanwhile, Reform UK are polling at their highest yet, 13%, just 7 behind the Conservatives. At the start of the show, I spoke to polling expert Scarlett Maguire. She's director of JL Partners. She gave me her analysis.
So we first started noticing this a few months ago, that the Reform Party have been steadily sort of ticking up in the polls. They've more than doubled their vote share, if you sort of believe what you see in them, over the last year. And actually, the polls have remained fairly static. The Conservative Party are going down, actually, which is not the direction Rishi Sunak will want to be on. I mean, 20% is not a good performance there. So they're on about 20%. And I think what would be really worrying for number 10 is having Reform just 7 points behind.
We're joined by the Times columnist Trevor Phillips, broadcaster as well, of course, and Times contributor features writer Helen Rumbelow, also with us on the show this evening. Helen, let's start with you. What do you make of Reform UK? They are slowly climbing up in the polls, and that will, well, I just wonder actually whether Conservative MPs would rather have their vote lost to Labour or to Reform.
Yeah, I'm going to actually start by referring to Jeremy Griffin, badgers and hedgehogs is probably more divisive than any political issue we've ever had on the Times in all my time there. But yeah, back to Reform. I think we don't give Rishi Sunak enough credit, actually, because he is under so much pressure now from Reform, from the right of his party, to panic and knee-jerk and let them call the tune. And I think he's actually showing real leadership, which it's a kind of bit of a unfashionable opinion, but I think in being this dignified captain of the Titanic as it slides down, but that sounds like he's defeatist. I think Reform is obviously going to strengthen the arm of his right wing, but I actually think that is really the wrong way to go. I think he has only votes to lose, and I think he will lose them by doing more of the sort of strange spasms that we've had in the past, both from him, if you remember his kind of weird petrol head phase, an attempt to win back the right-wing voters.
The car drivers.
Yeah, exactly. Or indeed Liz Truss before him.
Trevor, should Sunak take some credit? Is Helen right?
Well, you've got to sympathise with him. I don't want to make light of what we were discussing before, but this seems to me a completely different sort of mental health story. You sort of think, what is going on inside the Conservative Party's backbenchers' minds that anybody thinks it's a great idea to start talking about changing your leader at this point in the cycle? It is literally just deranged.
But they've still got 10 months, Trevor, and they're not making any headway in the polls. It's only, slipping away from them. And some people will say, well, we've got 10 months, even 9 months. Actually, that is enough time when you look at other, cases of politicians who've, suddenly sprung up from nowhere. Macron in France, that was a relatively short campaign before he was made president. So it is possible.
Yeah, but they're not. The Tories are not in the toilet because people don't like Rishi Sunak. The Tories are in the toilet because they don't like the Tories. At the beginning of this year, I'd said that Labour might win the next general election in spite of its leader, and that Rishi Sunak might win in spite of his party. The thing that's changed since then is, I think it's still true about Labour, that actually people may want to vote for the Labour Party. They're not desperately enthusiastic about, and I think this is unfair, by the way, they're not desperately enthusiastic about its leader. I think they liked Rishi Sunak at the beginning of this year, but hated the Tory party. What happened is that Rishi sort of lost his gloss. Now, I think I sort of agree with Helen that you got to admire his grit. I also think unorthodox point of view. It's not all over for them. I think people keep forgetting what an extraordinary mountain Labour has to climb to get a majority. The fact that Keir Starmer's got to where he's got is extraordinary, but bear in mind, Tories got an 80-seat majority. The redistribution of seats by the Boundary Commission has probably given them another 20. Labour used to expect 40 seats in Scotland. They'll be happy to get 20 or 25. I think on the reform thing, to me, it looks like a protest vote. I may turn out to be wrong, but it looked like a protest vote in the same way as it used to be for Lib Dems, and that a lot of people who are currently telling pollsters they'll vote for reform will go home to the Tories, because that's where they came from, and that's where they will end up. So the gap, and there's just a historic fact of political gravity. In every general election over the last 100 years, the governing party has regained somewhere between 5 and 10 to 12 points. Tony Blair at this point in 1997 was something like 25 to 30 points ahead. The eventual gap was 13 points.
Yeah.
So it's not all over.
Okay, all right. Look, Jerry Scott of the Times political team has said this evening that allies of Sunak are pressing to increase the threshold to trigger a confidence vote. This is a suggestion from Harriet Baldwin, the chair of the Treasury Select Committee, and this is in messages seen by Jerry. She says, why not change it so that 50% of MPs have to submit letters to challenge a prime minister rather than the 15% that it currently is. Currently, 53 MPs would need to submit letters of no confidence in Rishi Sunak in order to trigger a confidence vote. But she's suggesting that the boundaries should be changed on that. Helen, is that just a bit desperate?
I think, who is it, that woman on social media, Margaret? Not enough. What did she say? Not enough. I just feel like the public do not have appetite for endless carousel of leaders. That is absolutely not that is not.
Are you talking about
the change.
Brenda, not another
Oh,
one?
Brenda, that's it. Brenda. That is not the change they're looking for. That is literally the last thing they're looking for. I mean, I think that it is quite interesting, both in America and here, we seem to have these incumbents who are apparently sort of powerless to stop their slide towards defeat. And you wonder about that, what's happened to get to this point. And the truth is, there isn't really a good alternative to Rishi. I mean, not a viable alternative. So I think, I think that we actually should congratulate ourselves when talking about comparison with America. We should congratulate ourselves on where we are now compared to America, or where we even ourselves were a few years ago when we were in, we were the laughing stock, basically, through the state of our politics. And actually, what we have now is two very reasonable men.
It is the American public who want Donald Trump. It is not that Donald Trump's a farce and he's landed himself in that position just because that's what's happened. It is the American people who are putting Donald Trump. And look, I don't think all of them are ridiculous. They basically can't all be ridiculous. They have to be, largely quite sane people who feel that he presents the best choice for them.